Hey, I'm Alex Ratcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is Where Are They Now? The series where I take a look at the games I played a year ago and 5 years ago and tell you how they're holding up today. For each year, we're going to be dividing up the games into 4 categories. The games that I didn't like, the games that I liked but not enough to keep, the games that I liked enough to keep, and then the games that are still here a year and or 5 years later. We're going to be starting over here with January of 2020. We're going to be taking a look at, not 2020, January of 2024, which feels crazy to say that that's a year ago, because to me, January 2024 is right now. Right now is January 2024. That's, like, literally, just for the record, I went to go do this and I pulled up my plays from January 2023 because that's a year ago. Not 2 years ago, that's a year ago to me, at least until 2025 fully settles in. Either way, let's go ahead and dive through this. As usual, timestamps to everything down below, starting off with January of 2024 in the category of the games that I didn't like. And in general, this doesn't mean that I actively dislike them. It means that there wasn't enough going on. There wasn't enough. Sometimes they were actively bad, sometimes they just were completely forgettable, but they didn't even move to the category of liked. For this, we have 3 games. We have Sea Dragons, or was it River Dragons? I don't remember, because I had a non-English language version I was covering. I think it was Sea Dragons. River Dragons is a different game from Matago, if I'm not mistaken. But Sea Dragons, it is a polyomino-style game of placing polyomino dragons onto the board in order to score points and be mindful of where they go and getting majority in different areas. I thought the game was overall forgettable. It wasn't bad, but it was forgettable in a genre that is completely overflowing with polyomino games. There's also Antimony. Antimony is a 2-player button shy game that I just didn't think had enough going on. Button shy puts out a lot of games, and some of them I love, some of them I like, and some of them are barely even that, and this is barely even that. Not a bad game, but not enough there to even be compelling and move into the category of liking. In active dislike, we have Digsaw. Digsaw was a game that I think the premise of Digsaw is adorable and cute, and the execution of Digsaw was a game that has you cutting tiny little pieces that you have to track and manage. It was a terrible experience, a great concept. I was very interested in playing it. It's a roll and cut, basically, which is bizarre, but hey, I'm down for trying anything. But then you're cutting these tiny little pieces of paper, and it basically creates a mess and is hard to manage, so the execution of it did not work for me at all. In the category of games I liked, there's a whole bunch here. These are all games I liked, none of which moved into my collection. Starting off with Rise of Babel. This is a game that's not yet out, but I enjoyed it overall. The expansion might elevate it for me, I don't know. This is one of those games I did not back it. If the creator sends me a copy with the expansion stuff, I plan on diving into the expansion stuff to see if it elevates the game. But overall, the game was a good game. It's a nice midway Euro game. Again, this is a genre that I have too many, that you have to be better than a game that I enjoyed, and this was just a game that I enjoyed. There's also Ivion Hero Crafter. This is a game where you're trying to build out your heroes. You can either use pre-made decks or craft your own heroes with their own little crafting system, and then battling it out on the battlefield. I thought Ivion had some good concepts, gave you good card play. I just have too many great card play games that this one was a good game that I enjoyed, but not enough to move me to the next level. There's Everstone. Everstone Discovering Ignis. The gameplay on this is actually very, very good. The graphic design and presentation to me pulled it down for me a bit, and though I find that I really need, again, I'm going to stop saying this through all these because I keep saying I enjoyed these, but they weren't the best of the best. That's going to be true for this whole section. Everstone Discovering Ignis is a good game that I enjoy. The tableau is great. The art and graphic design weren't there for me. There's Snowfall Over Mountains, a small little solo game from Pencil First Games, a cute little puzzle, a good game. There are button shy games that give me that kind of experience. There's Sleeping Gods Distant Skies, and this one, and some of these others in this category, you might be like, isn't that in your collection? Didn't you keep that? Not really. Sleeping Gods Distant Skies, I tried getting into after playing through the original Sleeping Gods, and it just didn't pull me in. I did hold it onto it for a while because I wanted to play more than a single session before like making a decision around it, but that wasn't holding onto it because I liked it. It was holding onto it for the sake of discovering more, and eventually I got to a point where I realized, you know what, I'm just not in a rush to play it. It's one that I might still dive into. I know Meg has a copy and enjoys it more, so if she wants to table it, I'll table it, but I don't care enough about it myself. I think Sleeping Gods is a good system that has a lot of brilliant things going on, but it's not top tier. I'm doing it again. Moving on, we have the Fox Experiment. The Fox Experiment from Pandasaurus Games. This was a very clever game of trying to breed your fox species through like these genetic experiments and then using those to launch yourself forward. Again, a good overall system with a few complaints that held it back for me. We have Sunrise at the Studio, also from Pencil First Games, a delightful, charming little game of Gathering Kings. Fun, not good enough. We have Meeple Inc. Meeple Inc. is, again, not a game that's out yet, but it's a prototype that I played. A worker placement game that had a lot of fun concepts, but it felt more like an homage to the board game space, as opposed to a game that stands in its own right as this is a game you should play because the mechanics are great, the mechanics are good, and the theme is like why you might be attracted to it, and for me, I'm mechanics first, and so that wasn't enough for me. We have Vampire the Masquerade Chapters, a campaign game that I dived through. I don't even know how much I dived through. I dove into it a decent amount. I played through all the tutorials, then the first few missions. I don't remember how far I got. It gives you enough, like, I played it for like 10, 15 hours, somewhere in that range. I don't remember exactly how long, but I gave it a good amount of time. I think it does a lot of things very well, but as a campaign game, you really need to, again, you need to offer a lot more. The combat was okay. The engagement system of running around exploring, that was very charming, but a lot of small things worked really well, and a lot of small things didn't come together, but ultimately still an enjoyable experience, but you know where this goes. We also have Salton Sea. Salton Sea from Devere Games. I thought it was a really, really well done game that gave me a lot to think about. The challenge is it's very not intuitive. It takes a long time to play. It's way too long. Like, I only want to play that with 2 players. And it's a great heavyweight Euro game that, again, there's some interesting mechanics that are really interesting. The idea of your action cards being used as money as you go through them, very, very intriguing concepts in the game. But again, the biggest issues were a very long teach, not intuitive, and too long for the gameplay. That those things kind of held it back for me. There's also Seasons of Rice, another button shy game. This is another fun little button shy game of trying to overlay cards, creating your own little scoring systems. Again, good concept, been done in a lot of other games. And then lastly, there's Hallertau. Hallertau was great. A game from Roy Rosenberg. Thought it was a really, really solid game. My biggest problem with it is that in every way, shape, and form, I'd rather play a Feast for Odin over Hallertau every day. Like, they felt very similar in what they do and how they do it, and I'd always rather play a Feast for Odin. In the category games I kept that are no longer here, we have Fantasy Realms. I really enjoyed this one. Ultimately, I did find that I didn't need to have both Marvel Remix and Fantasy Realms in my collection, and I did choose to stick with Marvel Remix because it's a more accessible theme, or it gets to the table more because of the theme, which, yeah, the people I hang out with do like superheroes and Marvel and all that. There's also Vienna. Vienna from the Stefan City Collection and Stefan City Collection and Queen Games. Vienna was a good implementation, a re-implementation of La Isla, or La Isla, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, La Isla, let's say, and I thought it gave you a good amount of things to consider, especially the advanced mode of the game. Ultimately, Stefan Feld has a lot of incredible games, and this one, over time, did not last. It was good, I kept it for a while, but over time, I'd rather play other Stefan Feld games. And then lastly, there's Pixie, another button shy game. I got a lot of button shy games played this month, apparently, but Pixie, a delightful little deduction game, actually only finally just left, and that one left because ultimately I find that people in my game groups don't play deduction games as much as I would like to, and so I find that they often keep them and don't often play them as much as I would like to, despite enjoying them. And so I still have some, but Pixie did not make that final cut. And in the category games that I kept that are still here, we have Deliverance over here, Deliverance from Lone Games. Still a great game. I don't know if it's a forever game or not, but there's enough powers and abilities, because again, it goes back to the same system, the same issue where when I have so many great games available, I'm always looking for the best of the best of the best. And with Deliverance, the powers and abilities are some of the best powers and abilities and character building you'll have in a game. I think it's amazing, but the actual other elements of the game, particularly the skirmish/dungeon crawler, I feel that's less well-defined compared to other games. So it's best in class in one area and a little bit below average in other areas. For right now, it's still here, especially with the upcoming expansion, because I think that adds and improves upon the gameplay. There's Converge from Button Shy, still here on that one. I don't know if it's a forever game, but I do like Converge enough as far as the puzzle presents. Again, I think there are better Button Shy games, so I don't think it's forever, but Converge is still here right now. And then lastly, we have Sosig, which is not here because of me. It's a small little kids game that my kids like, and so it's still here because they find it to be a fun game of laying out little hot dog sausages end to end and trying to score points with them. I think it's charming and silly, and it's not fun, it's just very mass market and not a game I would ever personally pick to play. And that is basically the games for 2024. For 2020, for 5 years ago, 2020, again, the same exact thing. We're going to be going through 4 categories over here. The games I didn't like, the games I liked, the games I kept, and the games that are still here. In the category of games I didn't like, there's really only one. There's a game called Ragusa. Ragusa is I don't even remember much about this game. I just remember that I played it. I played it a long time ago, and I just was thoroughly unimpressed by it. This is not going to be very helpful as far as what I can say, because I don't remember what it was about the game that didn't work for me, but ultimately I remember being like actively disliking the game when I played it. But again, that's not that helpful. It's not very critical. I believe once upon a time I wrote a blog post about it, so there may even be a blog post somewhere on the internet or in someone's email. I don't know, but that's way back when. Either way, Ragusa did not work for me. In the category of games that I liked but are not here, I didn't choose to keep, there's Machi Koro Legacy. I did play through the entire Machi Koro Legacy for whatever it's worth. That's because it's a simple, easy game to teach. My daughter actually still wants to play it. I need to hunt down another copy of that. My daughter wants to replay Machi Koro Legacy, so I might try to give her that opportunity. Then there's also Barbarians the Invasion. Barbarians the Invasion was a very good, very unique Euro game that had a lot of things going for it that ultimately, again, over time, I just find that it's hard. Barbarians Invasion was a very good game. I liked it. I wish it would work more for the collection. It was a very unique game that I do recommend trying out if you're able to. It's just the nature of a competitive space of games and all that. And then lastly, there's Downforce. Downforce from Restoration Games was a good racing game that never moved me to the WoW category. It has a lot of expansions. A lot of people love it. I just enjoyed the experience, and that's it. In the category of games that I kept but then left, we have Glen More 2. I played the original Glen More. I liked it. Actually, had a long story of trying to track down the original Glen More way back when I really wanted to find a copy. I managed to meet up somebody. It's a whole long story. But ultimately, I got Glen More 2 as well. It's a game that I kept trying to table for forever. I think there's so many good things going on in Glen More 2. There are people who think it's a classic. I think they're not necessarily wrong. I tried for years on that one. Like I kept it, I got rid of it, I got it back. I kept trying to like it more, and I still think it's great. I still do think it's a great game, but I think it might need the modules to take it to the next level, and I never really fully dove into the modules. There's Undaunted Normandy. Undaunted Normandy, I actually have, well, so I don't have Undaunted Normandy anymore. I do have Undaunted 2200, which I just got, and I'm looking forward to tabling that more. But Undaunted Normandy, I like the Undaunted system. I like the same system from War Chest and all that, but I find that I don't love the theme of more modern wars. And so Undaunted Normandy is one I always tried to like more, but then eventually stopped trying on that system, and I'm currently trying with Undaunted 2200, so we'll see how that goes. There's the Isle of Cats. Played this and then kept it for a long time, hoping I would love it. I was so excited when I backed that game. I was like, it's polyominoes and cute cats. I'm going to love this game. And I didn't. I always thought it was a good game, and I never thought it was a great game, but I held on to it much longer than I should have because it's very cute and because I wanted to like it more. I do have Isle of Cats Explore and Draw, which I think is fantastic. I think it takes all the good things about Isle of Cats and removes some of the stuff that doesn't improve the gameplay. But Isle of Cats, the base game, I held on to it for years, hoping it would be more for me, and it never became more for me. And then lastly, we have In the Hall of the Mountain King. In the Hall of the Mountain King, a great game from Bird Island Games. This is another polyomino game that did work out well. I had it for years. I'm still a big fan of the game. I would happily play it. I do find the one thing that holds it back, and this cascading resources on the mountains is so much fun. There's some really solid things going on in the Hall of the Mountain King. I do find that the polyomino puzzle itself, the center puzzle as you move towards the caverns, doesn't feel as much like a polyomino game as I would like. It kind of feels like you're just using polyomino pieces without much reason to be using polyomino pieces, which might make sense to you if you played it, might not, but ultimately I still think it's a great game. I held on to it for years. It's a 4 out of 5. Eventually I did move away from it. Eventually I did leave the collection. And in the category of games that I kept and are still here, there are several. First of all, there's Air, Land, and Sea, which I played for the first time in, I guess, January 2020, and I loved it. Technically, I no longer have the original Air, Land, and Sea, but I have Air, Land, and Sea Critters at War, and it's a fantastic game that I will never stop recommending. I just think it's such a good two-player tug of war, easy to teach, easy to play, fantastic. It's been in many videos. It'll be in many more. There's also Marvel Champions. The other great game. I was not immediately sold on Marvel Champions. It is one that I needed multiple places on my belt to really buy into it, but since then I have really bought into it. Marvel Champions is incredible. It's a lot of fun. I still have so much content for it. I do not play it as often as I would like, but when I do, I'm always reminded of just how happy I am to have all the content for it. There's also Just One. Just One is a great party game. Played it for the first time 5 years ago, and it still holds up. It's still a great accessible party game. It's not my favorite in the party game genre. That's going to be for So Clover, Codenames, Crypto, things like that, but it is very, very close. It is in my top 5 party games probably. I'd have to look at that, but probably it's a good collaborative experience that is just a lot of fun to dive into. Then there's Horrified. Horrified is an interesting one. Horrified, I don't actually have the original Horrified that I once upon a time had, one of the first reviews I did on the channel, but I do currently have Horrified Greek Monsters. It's one that I've had different versions of Horrified. Currently, I still have it. I don't know if it's a forever... To me, Horrified is a game that I enjoy diving into the various versions of them, holding on to them for a few years, and then getting rid of it once I feel I've played it enough. So I don't think this is forever either, but honestly, this is like a set behind at this point, so I haven't even dove into the newest set, so I don't know what will be the long-term status of Horrified. I like experimenting and dabbling with the new content more so than the game itself. I think it's a good game. It's a good game with a lot of things that work well together, but part of the fun for me is the appeal of trying out different monster combinations, seeing how they play, and then eventually moving on to a new set. And then lastly, we have Vindication. Vindication played for the first time 5 years ago, and it is very, very much still here. I loved this one since my first play. I don't remember what got me into it or had me intrigued by it, but I did get very intrigued by it, and then it's been a non-stop enjoyment of this game for a very, very long time. Currently ranked my number 2 game of all time. Last year was my number 1. I don't know what it'll be next year, but I'm sure it'll be in my top 10 games. Although, hey, we'll see. We'll see. Who knows what happens? Who knows? Things have dropped out of my top 10 before. It can happen again. Anyways, until next time, this has been Where Are They Now? The series where I take a look at the games I played a year ago and 5 years ago for the first time. I should have said this in the beginning. These are all games that my first play was a year ago and my first play was 5 years ago, and then seeing how they hold up, well, now. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.